Emerald podcast series. Research that makes a difference.
Welcome to the Emerald podcast series.
In this series, we speak to experts from around the globe using research to create real impact.
In each episode, we explore the role of research within the context of the environmental, economic, social, and political challenges facing our society, and look at the ways in which research, policy, and practice interact to affect communities around the world.
We're your hosts. I'm Daniel Ridge.
I'm Helen Beddoe, and we are publishers at Emerald Publishing. This week, I'm speaking to Johnny D. Jones, founder and CEO of the Delta Project and Professor of Education at Mississippi Valley State University. Johnny is a democratic education activist and has worked in higher education for over 20 years, working at both historically Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, and predominantly white institutions, sometimes known as PWIs. He's the author of Leadership of Historically Black Colleges and Universities, a What Not to Do guide for HBCU leaders. We're here today to talk about HBCUs, their place in higher education, and effective leadership. Welcome to the podcast, Johnny.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, can you start by telling me a little bit about the history of HBCUs? What is their place in the US higher education system?
The history of HBCUs has been around in the United States for a very long time. They were formed to help educate the citizens of this country, of the United States, but particularly they educate former slaves, American Negro students, to make sure they can attend an institution of higher learning that they were not welcome to attend other institutions of higher learning in the United States at that time. So HBCUs have played a very, very vital part of the educational foundation of this country, educating citizens to become leaders in their profession. Most of the HBCUs were grounded in education. Also just creating a strong atmosphere for students to matriculate from, to go to a college or university that has a culture that's similar to where they are from, a culture that they can really, be part of to help educate themselves, educate their community, but most importantly, to be part of the fabric of continuing to build this nation. With over 100 HBCUs in the United States that have students from all countries from around the world, have different academic programs and different academic niches at each HBCU. That what makes them very, very unique. So HBCUs should continue to be a driving force of educating citizens in this country and throughout the world, but most importantly, maintaining their historical niche as well as their culture and what their mission and visions were when they were established.
And what have been some of the biggest challenges facing HBCUs in recent years?
Well, in my opinion, someone who went to a HBCU at the undergraduate level and at the graduate level, who has worked with multiple HBCUs around the country in a variety of different capacities, so have really, really, really been part of the HBCU landscape throughout my entire higher education professional career over the last 20 plus years. With that being said, a lot of the challenges that have been facing HBCUs in the recent years are always tied to accreditation, funding, external funding, unique academic programs, external resources, and most importantly, poor leadership. So I feel that, for HBCUs, particularly during these trying times, to turn their institutions around or to address some of the challenges that are facing the institution, they really need to look at the leadership of those institutions, making sure that those leaders are able to address some of those major issues of accreditation, funding, unique academic program, external resources, and understanding what type of leader should be selected.
And are these particularly unique leadership challenges for HBCU schools?
Yes, they are unique challenges. We have a lot of leaders at HBCUs who are just not ready to serve in those leadership capacities. One of my colleagues who has worked at HBCUs over 40 plus years, he makes the statement all the time, Dr. Darnell Williams, he makes the statement all the time that to work at an HBCU, knowing that there are challenges, particularly tied to funding, accreditation, it's your opportunity to serve. I have seen too many times many HBCUs fail because the leaders are self-serving. They care more about their title than their opportunity to serve. And that is not the foundation and the mission and vision of HBCUs. HBCUs have always been an institution that is there to serve leaders who have served in these institutions, who have helped these institutions become great institutions. Those leaders serve the students and serve the community and serve the citizenship. They were not self-serving leaders.
I really like the subtitle of your book, A What Not to Do Guide.
Thank you.
Mistakes are powerful learning opportunities. So what are some of the biggest pitfalls and common mistakes you've seen in HBCU leadership?
A lot of the issues I have seen with HBCUs across the country and multiple regions of the United States is the fact that it's always tied to funding. Then also HBCUs, they continue to recycle some of the leaders in a variety of different areas of academic affairs, student affairs, and also presidents that were not successful at other HBCUs, which can be tied to seasoned leadership or seasoned people want the same people around them so that they will not be held accountable. So accountability is a piece that really hinders HBCUs from being successful, where they'll hire someone to raise money in institutional development, but the person in institutional development cannot even raise the operation costs of their unit. We talk about innovative academic programs. Yes, HBCUs around the country a lot of them have been underfunded, by the state if they receive monies from the state, but also there's a level of responsibility of the graduates and also of the people who went to the HBCU to give back to the HBCU. And then also just unethical practices by a lot of presidents, from improper hiring practices in regards to mismanagement of funds, criminal issues, a lot of different things that as a leader, particularly as a president of HBCU, you should be cognizant of, because you represent the HBCU and also the citizenship of the students that are coming there to try to ascertain the degree at the institution. If you are a leader of an institution, particularly like a HBCU or any institution of higher learning, regardless of where you're located, anywhere in the world, but if you're taking on a leadership position, let's just say a president or a chancellor, if you take it for granted that people come to this institution, pay their hard-earned money, a lot of them take out loans, they still be paying money because they have to pay the loans back, but they come to this institution and they are entrusting you with their life to say, hey, I am paying for this education, I'm paying for this experience. If you take that for granted, or you really do not provide a high quality level of education and operations and also educational experience to that person, I feel that's criminal.
And these problems around leadership, I mean, in your book you mention seasoned administrators and seasoned friends. What do you mean by these?
Yes, seasoned administrators. What happened is that what I have witnessed is that a lot of HBCU leaders, they consider themselves seasoned when you have been in higher learning for over 20, let's just say 20 plus years. I can say that I am a seasoned administrator, but the difference with being a seasoned administrator is that a lot of these leaders have only experienced leadership at HBCU. Some of them have experienced leadership only at one HBCU. And there's a difference between being experienced and having multiple experiences. Yes, there are some administrators out there who have multiple experiences and that can maintain a level of excitement, a level of excellence, right leadership to move the HBCU forward. But also there's a lot of administrators out there who proclaim themselves as seasoned administrators who continue to do the same things that are hindering the HBCUs and cannot move the HBCU forwards. If they are real leaders or real administrators, they will help create the next wave of new administrators to come in to pass down that knowledge to continue to push the HBCU forward, because it's about the institution. It's not about them.
And what does good leadership look like?
We have some HBCUs, some presidents that are doing some phenomenal things, at their university that can be seen as a model for future HBCU presidents or future leaders of HBCUs as well, such as Ruth Simmons at Prairie View A&M University. Phenomenal, outstanding, very smart, intelligent. I consider her leadership as a model for future HBCU leaders. Michael Sorrell at Paul Quinn College in Texas. Beverly Tatum did an excellent job at Spelman University and also at other institutions of higher learning as a leader. Then also we have Quentin Ross down at Alabama State University. They are doing some great things, he's doing some great things with his leadership at Alabama State University. So there are other HBCU leaders across the country that we can utilize as a blueprint of success, who have worked at different leadership capacities in and out of higher education or multiple institutions of higher learning. But most importantly, they put their institutions first and they lead by example.
Something I've noticed in UK institutions, one of the issues that I see is that as people kind of move up to leadership positions, they've not really received the training. They've kind of not received like the project management training or the leadership development. You know, they're kind of appointed on their academic ability or their ability, you know, to bring in funding. And in HBCUs, is that missing as well, that like project management training piece, that leadership development training piece?
It is. You have a lot of HBCU leaders who their training comes from their academic program, or they may have experiences at other HBCUs, but you really don't have that project management or business mindset training. You have a lot of different leadership training programs around the country, you know, things you can do online, international training programs, but it goes back to the person's track record, a level of success. When you have presidents take on position at HBCUs and say that they are enrollment management experts, however, their track records show that they are not enrollment management experts. They really can't articulate, you know, how they increase enrollment at the other institution. How does enrollment management compare to other institutions of higher learning? They don't utilize data. Enrollment management is a science. Same thing as student affairs and academic affairs. What did you do at your previous institution that really enhanced the academic enterprise of that institution, but most importantly, put that institution in a position where they can be a competitive institution in its global marketplace? We deal with COVID-19 and we are becoming a more global society through technology. People have a choice, and HBCUs are very important in terms of the culture, in terms of in the midst of all these different things going on with Black Lives Matter, but students still have a choice to receive a proper education. Students will enroll at HBCUs, but most importantly, they will leave them as fast as possible. And you're going to create this cycle of struggling HBCUs because they're not operating at their highest level capacity in this competitive global education marketplace. And then you got to look at the leader. Does the HBCU has the right leader in place?
So, I mean, it seems really important then to be able to bring in fresh eyes to leadership positions. You know, where should these institutions be looking at to hire? You know, who should they be looking to bring in into leadership?
A lot of the HBCUs, they really need to figure out what type of leader they want first. Bowman and Deal's frame theory to decide what type of leader is best fit for that institution. Structural, symbolic, human resource, political type leader. What's best for that institution? And it takes doing the research and slowing things down. I believe a lot of HBCU, particularly in this trying time, they should use organizations like, different organization that does interim hiring for leadership. Instead of bringing someone in, you spend 6 to 8 months, particularly when your institution is unstable, going through a process and hoping that you got the right person, then come to find out you don't have the right person. But if you reach out to organizations such as the registry, and they are an organization that work with HBCUs, work with institutions around the country to hire people on an interim basis so that the board or whatever the governing body wants from that leader in an interim time to make sure the HBCU is back on track. Then not only you save financial resources, but you have a strategic plan of going where you want to go based on the institution needs. I feel also that HBCUs need to work with there are other different leadership programs out there and look at how can you train a leader that's going to be tailored to the HBCU because they are very unique. I think HBCUs should take more of a business model in terms of holding leaders accountable. Yes, they have contracts, but most importantly, there should be certain things they need to accomplish to enhance the HBCU. So the leadership, the training starts with the institution expectations. People can go to leadership training around the country. They can enroll in different doctorate programs around the country. However, what are the expectations of the HBCU? If the HBCU has high expectations, then only people you will attract to come lead in those different positions are people who agree with those expectations and also know they have the capability of fulfilling those expectations.
It sounds like also, as well as strong leadership, you need a strong strategy and you need to understand, I guess, the core value and the core character of the institution.
Exactly.
So how can leaders kind of keep these core values in mind while creating a strategic plan for the institution? What kind of mission and clear vision?
Well, and that starts with working with a clear shared governance structure at the institution, working with the student, staff, faculty, board, community stakeholders, understanding what those core values are from the beginning. We have a lot of HBCUs that go into institutions and can't write a strategic plan, can't put a strategic plan together. They come in those institutions and the first thing they will say, well, how are things done prior to now? We just going to keep moving this forward. I have seen HBCU leaders, they take a strategic plan that has no substance, that's not measurable, but they just change the name, add a tagline to it, and move on, say this strategic plan. But when you look at the strategic plan and you measure the strategic plan, then you will see that nothing was accomplished. I mean, understanding the core value of the HBCU and accomplishing the things that need to be accomplished. The accountability also plays on the students, faculty, staff, and internal and external stakeholders. They need to be held accountable. A lot of HBCUs are very, very spiritually grounded. Educating former slaves, a lot of HBCUs are tied to different religious affiliations. So they are very spiritually grounded. And just because you hear some people have a strong, what I call spiritual rhetoric, that they talk from a spirituality point of view, but they don't live the things that they are discussing from a spirituality point of view, then, you can't be fooled by someone who really doesn't have the institution's best interest in heart.
That also kind of links back to this project management piece, not having that kind of wider project management business mindset around accountability, how to develop a strategic plan, how to put it in action, and how to check that you're delivering on the things that you've promised to deliver.
Exactly. And that's where I feel that HBCUs a lot of institutions of higher learning, they are shifting to more project management in terms of leading institutions of higher learning. The traditional route used to be at a HBCU or any institution of higher learning was you're a faculty member, you want to go to administrator route, you may become a chair. From a chair, you go become a dean, from a dean to a provost, and then you're the president. Because through all those different steps, you should have been able to ascertain some level of project management, understanding budgeting, understanding accountability, numbers, resources, all the different things that should make you a successful institution. But most importantly, understand how to initiate planning and execution in terms of performance monitoring for the project you're trying to accomplish at the HBCU. HBCUs need to think about how can we be more innovative? How can we look at a project management style leader to make sure we hold that person accountable to accomplish what we want to accomplish? If we're trying to increase enrollment, how are we going to initiate it? What's the plan? How it's going to be executed? And how it's going to be measured? And then who's responsible for that? If you're the president, you are responsible. If you hire someone to be over enrollment management, if they fail, then did you make sure they have all the necessary tools in place for them to succeed? So again, it's a level of accountability across the board and having that project management, more business mindset.
I mean, perhaps the biggest responsibility HBCU leadership has is to their student body. Are there additional challenges in supporting HBCU student bodies? And how can HBCU strategy deliver here for students?
Well, with HBCUs, their primary focus should be their student body because I'm going to throw a figure out there, but I think I'm very, very close to being right. 96% of HBCUs are enrollment-driven institutions. So if you are an enrollment-driven institution, and then it's your responsibility to make sure that these students maximize their learning experience and also they will be able to ascertain a degree where they can go out and get a job with that degree they have worked hard for that will allow them to successfully take care of themselves and also pay back any expenses they will owe trying to complete their degree at their institution. If it's money owed to the institution, or if it's money owed to student loans, or if it's money owed to private loans or from family members, they need to understand how to best maximize the students' success is through dynamic resource planning, accurate budgeting, forecasting, interactive resource and scheduling, thinking outside the box in terms of cross-team collaboration, and also, just things that can help the student be successful at all times through student success. But again, it starts back with leadership.
And I think in your book, you kind of focus in on a particular type of event that HBCUs can take a more business-minded approach to, which is the sporting events. I know sporting events, especially the football games, are a major part of HBCUs kind of culture and a key event in the calendar. Tell us a bit about this history of sporting events at HBCUs and how these sporting events are key in helping the schools connect to their local communities.
The sporting events at HBCUs are huge due to the fact that a lot of HBCUs, if they have a football team, they have what you call homecoming. Homecoming is the largest football event each year, and also different football classics, such as Tennessee State versus Jackson State in Memphis, Jackson State versus Mississippi Valley State, different classes at different places like Chicago, Indianapolis, or when HBCUs traveled out west to play a predominant white school. You got HBCU alums that love to see HBCUs. HBCUs are very famous because of their band. The most famous HBCU classic in the world is the Grambling versus Southern University, the Bayou Classic down in New Orleans. So homecoming in these classes are very, very vital to and very popular to people who graduate from HBCUs and people who did not graduate from HBCUs, and also people who want to attend HBCUs. And there are other major sporting events like the CIAA basketball tournament that happens every year. That's a great event. So in these HBCUs, homecoming usually carry a lot of HBCU sports outside of football in terms of revenue generating at homecoming. It's something that needs to be changed at these different HBCUs. That's a good revenue stream for these different colleges and universities. It will help in terms of recruitment and retention of students. But most importantly, you can utilize these resources to enhance academic programs, or also put the different athletic teams in a better place to be more competitive, to secure other financial resources from other sports teams or from other conferences, such as like this year, Southern University is scheduled to play Louisiana State University in 2025 at like $1 million game. So utilize the resources correctly, invest back into the different academic program.
So Dwayne J. Womack, president of Claflin University, said recently, when other institutions catch a cold, HBCUs catch a flu. And, well, they're currently facing quite a crisis with COVID-19 at the moment. Have HBCUs been hit harder? Has COVID-19 exacerbated some of the challenges HBCUs have?
Well, HBCUs have been underfunded for many years. You can see where COVID-19 is really taking a hard hit into the American Black community. And that a lot of these students, lack of education of COVID-19 in these different communities where these students come from, these different communities to attend these HBCUs. HBCUs have to do more with less. It's our responsibility, HBCUs, to work hard and do what we have done for over a century. Like they say, HBCUs, they make brick out of straw. They turn stones into diamonds. HBCUs are here to continue to serve and to serve citizenship around the world. However, we have to be more stewards with the resources that we have. We have to cut back and also help build, and also got to hold our leadership accountable for managing the resources, as well as reach out to different alums to support these HBCUs, because they are needed in a lot of different communities where these schools are set up for these students to help these students be successful, make brick without straw, turn stones into diamonds, and that's why they're needed. So that's what you mean by other institutions catch a cold, the HBCUs catch the flu. That's a powerful statement.
How can people at the management level, how can people at leadership level be leaders, real leaders during COVID-19? How can they lead an organization working from home online in these different circumstances?
Well, the first thing they need to do a real thorough assessment of where they are as an institution. I think they should definitely look at how to transform their curriculum to fully online delivery. A lot of HBCUs are struggling there because they don't have the technology infrastructure in place, and they have not built the technology infrastructure in place because they continue to operate in a very antiquated society and antiquated operation and don't want to change. The faculty need to be trained in virtual teaching. The students need to be trained in virtual learning. A lot of HBCUs saying we got to go to virtual online teaching, but a lot of these students are not capable, or you have not assessed the students to see, are these students ready to shift immediately? And then you're talking about a level of student learning assessment and also retention. And look at different mixed modalities of teaching and learning. Don't just wait and see what one school is doing. You need to figure out what can you do to best serve your student at HBCU. And also just looking at how you can change, just the academic year. Should it be short residency? Should you go to a more of a quarter system? Should it be a more hybrid learning model? You have to know who your students are and what's best for your students. You're going to maintain viability as HBCU in your region.
Absolutely. And to talk about the other kind of major event that we're seeing at the moment, the Black Lives Matter movement began in 2013 and was founded by Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi and Patrisse Cullors after Trayvon Martin's murderer was acquitted. And it really took hold within and was driven forward in higher education by students within HBCUs. And we did see that, kind of lead to the removal of leadership in some cases and see significant changes in policy. Black lives have always mattered at HBCUs. What role have HBCUs played in Black activism and in social injustice?
Oh, Lord, HBCUs have played a vital role throughout their creation in what I call the American Negro Civil Rights Movement and I was particularly with the modern movement of Black Lives Matter and others. You can look at historical movements at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Mississippi Valley State University, down the street from where Emmett Till was murdered. Jackson State University just celebrated the 50th anniversary of students being killed on their campus, being social activists, as well as home of Medgar Evers, as well as Howard University, Langston University, just to name a few. HBCUs will forever bear witness to the changing political landscape of America, historically built and continue to enhance this country. But most importantly, that HBCUs was also a meeting place for a lot of these different social injustice gatherings. A lot of people don't talk about South Carolina State University, the Orangeburg Massacre. A lot of these students went to HBCUs and they took a stand to continue to try to better this country. HBCUs played a vital role in terms of hosting different meetings. A lot of HBCUs didn't play a vital role because they understood where they were. And they want to make sure they maintain the HBCU as an institution, but students stepped up and went against the institution to try to move, in the civil rights program, in the civil rights activism forward. So HBCUs had a responsibility then, and they even more got a responsibility now. And these leaders at these HBCUs got even more of a responsibility. Putting on a t-shirt saying Black Lives Matter is fine, but what are you going to do about it? How are you going to use your academic programs in terms of if you have a bachelor's and a master's degree program in criminal justice? What are your faculty and students and staff are doing to help change the horrible criminal justice system in your state or in your country or in your region? If you have a social work program or a public policy program, what are you doing to work with changing policy around inhumane living conditions? What are you doing? You have an economic program. What are you doing? What your faculty and staff are doing to help change policy to create more economic wages in the United States or in your region or in your state? What are you doing if you have a health physical education program and also a biology program? You want to tackle, childhood obesity or health disparities in your state and region. So what are you doing? And see, institutions of higher learning, they are in different places. We're supposed to be the think tank. Professors, people they call you doctor this and doctor that, but what are you doing to help change and make America better? So yeah, HBCUs played a vital role in civil rights, American Negro Civil Rights Movement, and also they can play a vital role in Black Lives Matter movement, but also I think they can do more. They can do more. You can't sit idly by and you have professors and you have academic programs where you're supposed to do research. You're supposed to bring something to the table, but you don't bring anything to the table. You can't sit idly by. And when you see the education of different places in the Mississippi Delta or other different places where they have poor education system, but you have a Department of Education or you have a College of Education and multiple HBCUs in the state and the education landscape is not changing. You're not helping change policy. So what are you doing? That goes back to leadership.
After the Black Lives Matter movement was founded in around 2013, there was also around the same time an increase in student submissions to HBCUs. And with the renewed attention on the Black Lives Matter protests, particularly in the wake of the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, to name just two people who have been killed by the police, raises an awareness of structural racism and driving change at institutions. There's been some suggestions that Black Lives Matter could lead to an increase in support of HBCUs. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, it can lead in support of HBCUs. No, it goes back to the roots, identify the historical context of the HBCUs. Same thing in early civil rights movement of the 60s and 70s, where the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there's a lot of increased enrollment at HBCUs because the HBCUs played a vital role in these different movements. The HBCUs where you can find a lot of answers and have some real heart-to-heart conversations without feeling being threatened. It's a proud moment for HBCUs to gain new attention. This is why our beloved HBCUs must be on point with their operations and contribution to the academy. This is a time for change, and HBCUs must lead that change. However, it starts with changing yourself as an institution. If students are coming to your institution, want to enhance their education or wants to enhance their lives, you have a level of responsibility, and don't take advantage of those students who are feeling proud. A lot of people are feeling proud and they are saying, hey, I want to go to HBCU. Now we see a lot of major athletes are saying, hey, I want to go to a HBCU. So they come into HBCU because they feel safer, or they want to choose HBCU because of the pride that's going on in the Black Lives Matter movement and other great movements that are out there. So don't take advantage of these students. Make sure these students receive the highest level of educational experience as possible that we owe them because they have chosen your institution to make themselves a better citizen.
People in leadership at HBCUs really hold a huge responsibility.
You are correct.
Do you think that they are cognizant enough of that?
No, I really don't. It's a lot of great leaders out there. HBCUs are cognizant of it, but it's a lot of them that are not. I know some HBCUs, they drive an economic impact of their region anywhere between $30 to $50 million. So decisions that are made can hinder the economic impact, hinder different jobs, and hinder different other things that help move that region forward. A lot of them I really don't. Not only they are not cognizant of it, but they don't want the responsibility.
In the wake of the pandemic, we've seen high-profile billionaires gift large amounts of money to HBCUs. So I know that Netflix CEO Reed Hastings has gifted $120 million. Robert F. Smith launched the Student Freedom Initiative to help pay off HBCU student debts. What do you think about these large public donations? Could this have a long-term impact for HBCUs?
I think they are great, that this movement is driving more attention to HBCUs that will warrant great gifts like this from Robert Smith, as well as Netflix CEO Reed Hastings. I appreciate these large donations and pray that these gifts ignite a change and a plan for HBCU alumni to start and go above and beyond for their institutions. However, we need to hire real and strategic people in institutional development. If you're working in institutional development, again, if you can't raise the operation costs of your unit, you are incapable of doing your job. We should build relationships. And also when we receive gifts from major donors like Robert Smith and Netflix, be held accountable for those resources. Do not waste those resources. Have strategic way of utilizing those resources to gain more resources. Create strategic partnerships for sustainable giving.
If HBCUs were able to change one thing right now in order to operate better, what would that one thing be?
HBCUs are very beautiful institutions, but we have to get out of our own way. You have to get out of our own way. HBCUs should understand exactly what type of leader they want. I really believe in using the frame theory. But most importantly, I feel that each person that comes to HBCU, they must believe and understand the term called pride investment. It's a term that I created about 10 years ago. But pride investment is something that is invested through act of devoting, using, or giving of time, talent, and emotional energy for a purpose of achieving something great. If you don't understand pride investment and you're not able to invest in your institution, then you should not be serving in the institution. Everything starts with the leader, and the leader has to be able to participate in a true participatory shared governance process to be able to uplift, but lead by example through ethical leadership, fiscal responsibility, as well as participatory shared governance, and also being competent and hiring competent people. If you're not here to serve the students, by John D. O'Brien, he used to say, if you're not here to serve the students, you are in the wrong place.
Thank you very much, Johnny. That was a fascinating discussion. I really enjoyed that conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next week, I'll be speaking to Karen Carberry, consultant family therapist at Ori, and Ted Ransour from Michigan State University. They're two of the 3 co-editors of the International Handbook of Black Community Mental Health, along with Patrick Vernon, and we'll be talking about inequalities in mental health care for Black communities.